nod. Okay. So who gets to join NATO? Well, with the war, the Russian war in Ukraine, and a number of countries like Finland and Sweden are applying to join NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This activity will teach about the purpose of NATO and the criteria to join. So we're going to do a little introduction to NATO. We only have 4 schools in this breakout, so we'll actually be able to go through this pretty quickly. And then we'll have time for a Kahoot and some prizes at the end. All right. But we'll do an introduction, and then I'll explain the activity. And then you'll have 30 minutes to work offline in your groups at your school. And then we'll do some presentations, and then, yeah, we should have time for the Kahoot at the end. So here we go. We're going to watch a 1-minute video, and I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my sound. Make sure I'm sharing my sound, screen sharing, share computer sound. Here we go. All right.
NATO is a child of the Cold War. When it was founded in 1949, there were 12 members. Today, the club has expanded to 30, 2 in North America, 28 in Europe. NATO is built around the principle of collective defense, which means an attack on one member is an attack on all of them. Their rival during the Cold War was the Warsaw Pact, a similar alliance led by the Soviet Union. 3 NATO members are also nuclear powers: the US, UK, and France. Together, NATO makes up around 57% of global military spending. The United States is the undeclared leader, providing 22% of the alliance's budget. NATO's power center is in Brussels. From its Cold War days, the NATO is programmed to target Russia. Today, it faces a new threat from further east, a belligerent China.
All right, so that's your 1-minute intro to NATO. Can anyone tell me, when was NATO founded? We'll just start with the first part of that question. What year was NATO founded? You can put it right in the chat if you'd like.
Hi, Roger.
Hey, how's it going? 1949, yes. Anthony, you're close, but it was actually, yes, 1949. Good. Oops, sorry. And why was NATO founded? Someone want to try and answer that one?
Is it like a way to connect countries such as like the Europeans and other places together?
Yeah, it was a way to connect countries across Europe. And someone's saying about the Warsaw Pact. Yes, it was a way to combat the Warsaw Pact and Russian power after World War II, right? So after World War II, there were basically 2 big groups of countries. There were the Russian-led Warsaw Pact, and then the Western Europe and NATO. The US and Western Europe formed NATO, so they kind of were forming alliances to protect and work together, right? So next question. What is collective defense? This was something that was in the video. What is collective defense? Anyone want to take a guess at that?
What was the question?
Yeah, what is, it's on the screen there, the second bullet. What is the principle of collective defense?
If you attack one member, you attack all members, I think.
Yeah, exactly, right? If you attack one member, you attack all members, and the opposite as well, right? If you are a part of NATO and someone else gets attacked, then you are also responsible for helping respond to that attack. Yeah, Kimberly, absolutely correct in the chat there. Nice. All right, and then the end of the video identified 2 current superpower countries that NATO is currently defending against. What are the 2 other major superpower countries that NATO is trying to protect itself against at the moment? China and Russia, absolutely. Nice job in the chat there. Okay, so our next slide. Let's go on.
NATO is a child of...
Okay, so we're going to do an activity revolving around NATO, and you're going to have 30 minutes for this activity, which is a decent amount of time, actually. In this activity, you are going to pretend like you are an ambassador for your country. It's a made-up country, and you want your country to join NATO. You are not currently a member of NATO. You want to join them, all right? So in this 30 minutes, and we'll probably start at about 12:20, in the 30 minutes, you will learn about your country, and you have a one-page overview to learn about your country. So everyone should be reading that one-page overview. If you're working together as a whole class, you can show the one page on the screen and read it together. And then you are going to write a 3-minute speech saying why your country should be admitted to NATO. So each school, we have 4 different schools on here. Each school is going to get to give their own speech. So we'll hear 4 speeches total. And it's possible, because NATO can expand to as many countries as they want, right? It's possible that all 4 of you could get voted to join NATO today. Wouldn't that be exciting? It's also possible that no one might get voted into NATO. We'll see what happens. All right, so you'll have until, it says, yeah, you'll have until 1 p.m. to write your speech. All right, so we'll make that, we'll give a little bit extra time there. And during your speech, you can use multiple people from your country to speak, right? So multiple of your classmates, you can have multiple debaters on your team, multiple ambassadors make the speech. All right, before we ask you to write the speech though, we're giving you the 5 important criteria that you must talk about in your speech. And your one-page document is divided up this way as well, okay? So, new members must uphold democracy, which includes tolerating diversity. What do we think number 1 means? Can someone either put in the chat or unmute themselves and tell me what you think number 1 means? What does it mean to uphold democracy and tolerate diversity? All right, this is kind of a tricky one, I think. All right, a democratic country. Yeah, go ahead.
Would it be like, well, I don't know, but getting together and like, no matter like where you come from, like, or which country you come from, you still like learn to like tolerate each other. And I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So tolerating diversity is definitely no matter where you come from, right? What your background is, like accepting all people, right? That's a good definition, I think, for tolerating diversity. Nice job, Phil. And then for upholding democracy, right? So what does it mean for a country to be a democracy? What does it mean for a country to be a democracy? All right. Go against, no. No, not quite. What does it mean for something to be a democracy?
All members get a say.
Yeah, all members get a say. All right. And I see another one in the chat, a group of people leading everyone else. Yeah, so this is great, right? So in a democracy, right, the idea is that everyone gets to vote. Everyone gets a vote to make decisions about the country, right? So an example of, or a counter example, something that is not a democracy, would be something like a monarchy, which is ruled where a king or a queen get to make all the decisions. All right. So, number 2, new members must be in the midst of making progress towards a market economy. This one's a little trickier. You may not know this one, but you could Google it. Google is totally allowed and encouraged. All right. So a market economy means that a economy that is driven by different markets and and the prices are set based on what people are willing to pay for them, not controlled by the government. Right? In some places, the government controls how much things cost. They get to decide, what the cost of a gallon of gas is or a gallon of milk. In a market economy, people are free to set whatever prices they want for the products they sell. And most of the businesses are privately owned, not just run by the government. All right. Number 3, the nation's military forces must be under firm civilian control. So what is I'll ask the question this way. Who is in charge of the military in the United States? Who is the leader of the military in the United States?
Is it the president?
It is the president, yes, thank you. So the president of the United States is the leader of our military. And so in order for a military force to be under firm civilian control, what that means is the president, who's elected by the people in the United States, is a civilian. The president is not a member of the military, and they're elected by people voting for them. So that means that people who are in the military, like generals, don't necessarily get to just make their own decisions entirely, right? A general in the United States military couldn't decide for our country to go to war, for example. That decision would be up to the president and the Congress. Oops, sorry. All right, number 4, nations must be good neighbors and respect sovereignty outside their borders. What does this one mean? What does it mean to be a good neighbor? What does it mean to be a good neighbor to other countries?
Help them out in needs and
share natural resources, I guess, to each other, like trading.
Yeah, I think those are both great parts of being a good neighbor, right? Share natural resources, trade with them, help them out when they're in need. All right. And the biggest part about this is respecting sovereignty outside their borders, right? Or really respecting other countries' borders, right? So imagine you live in a building with someone else and they decided, you know what? That room, you know how we share a wall? Well, one side of the, I have my room, you have your room. We're good neighbors. We live next to each other. We respect each other. Well, if I decided to just knock down the wall, put a big hole in the wall, and claim part of your room was actually my room now, that would not be me being a good neighbor. But this is something that sometimes happens in the real world. A lot of times there are countries, there are borders that are officially drawn on maps that are recognized by the whole world, and yet a country might decide, actually, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit more. This part right here, that's going to be part of my country now. That's not being a good neighbor, right? So, all right. And last, we have the nations must be working together toward compatibility with NATO forces. So I'll just give you this one here. So nations must be working toward compatibility with NATO forces. Basically what that means is it's talking about the military force, right? So if each country in each member of NATO is its own country, every country has its own military. The United States has a military, France has a military, Germany has a military, right? An important part of being in NATO is making sure all of the militaries in NATO can work together. So I need France and Germany and the United States and all the other countries who want to join. If you are a country that wants to join NATO, you need to be getting better at working together. And what that means is we should have some of the same technology, some of the same weapons. We should have some of the same communications, right? You know, might be really hard, like if one country was using, you know, only like iPhones for all their communications and someone else was using only Androids for all their communications. Like it's possible to communicate, but it can be harder, right? So that's what it means to have compatibility with NATO forces, that all of the militaries from different countries are able to work together. All right, so we're going to move on to the activity now, and you'll have 30 minutes for this part. Every member of your group should have a one-page info sheet on your country applying to NATO, and I'm going to show you where you can find this in a minute. If you don't already have it, that's okay. And double check, do you have a lot of students? Break into multiple groups, each preparing for the same country, and do you know which country you've been assigned? So we're going to go over the country assignments right now. We have 4 schools on here. We have Boston Green Academy, Henderson, Neighborhood House, and Dearborn. All right, so please put in the chat if you know which country you have been assigned. And I see in the chat, yes, Boston Green Academy, you're going to be LeBron Land. Yep. All right, Dearborn, you're going to be Luconda. I'll copy these right into the chat here. All right, Henderson, you are the Steph Republic.
Roger,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt. We were just switching rooms and getting lunch, so we missed a little bit. What country are we assigned?
Oh, you're going to be assigned Tatum Zania. You're actually right on time with that, so no worries.
Oh, so no one started writing their speech yet?
Correct. We're going to give you until 1 o'clock to write your speech.
And it's a made-up country?
Yes. So I'm going to share the resources right now. We'll
Okay,
put them
great.
in the chat as well. All right. So in the chat right now, you'll see a document. And this has descriptions of all of the countries that you're going to be writing your speech about. Okay, so please go ahead and open the document in the chat. The explanation of the activity is at the top. All right, and then you can scroll down to your country. All right. So you're going to have 30 minutes. Again, the point is to write a 3-minute speech about why your country should join NATO. And you need to explain why it meets all 5 criteria for upholding, for joining NATO. So the rubric for your speech is on the first page of the packet. And then the descriptions of the countries are on pages 2 through 6. Make sure you choose just your country. All right, does anyone have any questions? All right, so I'll be here. You have 30 minutes to write your speech. You can start, go ahead. All right, let me stop sharing the screen here.